What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am sorry for the long video, but I'm here to talk about the NFL draft, and we are going to talk about every team's draft. We're not going to talk too much about like the behind the scenes stuff and talk about all the other stuff, but we are going to go right into it and start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a really good draft, I thought, no matter what anybody says. Oh, apologies for all that. Um, I thought their first round pick was awesome, and I think one thing that they really got here was a character draft. Like, you got guys who are characters, and what I mean by that is they got guys that I think are very humble. I think that they got guys that are very, um, you know, very when you hear about DK being that kind of like aggressive person and you hear George Pickens being kind of like a locker room cancer, to bring in a guy who we obviously saw what happened to his mom. I just watched the video today of him basically like he got drafted and not even 10 seconds later he was pretty much he soaked in the moment but was like, no, I got to go see my mom, and it was emotional seeing the video. And I think you really got somebody who is going to be a off the field is going to be awesome. Is going to be a guy that is going to be a leader. And at the end of the day, I think on the field, an animal. I think you could also say the same thing about Howard. No matter what people think about this pick, I think it's huge. In my opinion, one of the smartest guys in the draft. And I think he proved that on the John Gruden quarterback show. He seemed like the smartest guy. He seemed like a very humble guy, and I can't wait to see it. Will Howard be, whether he's a backup or anything. To get guys like Johnson at where they did and Sawyer, a positional need in running back, the edge was a little different, and I think that like now the defensive front for the Pittsburgh Steelers is probably the deadliest in the NFL. It does not matter, but if TJ's coming at you, Herbig, Highsmith, Sawyer, now Harmon, Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward, and Black now all going to be coming at you on that defensive front, and that's scary. I thought Pittsburgh did well. Got a great free agent safety from the guy from Iowa, and I think that that's huge. I'm not going to really rate these drafts. I'm just going to tell them what I liked and what I didn't like. I thought Arizona did well, except for I thought they were going to go a lot more offensive weapons first. I thought they were going to be a offensive weapon heavy, and or at least offensive situations. They didn't really do that. They didn't really go for that. They only got one offensive player, and that was a guard. But I do like the defensive positions that they made. I think that now between you got a really good linebacker, a good corner, a good defensive tackle. Like this team defensively should be really, really strong in a few years at least. And I think that Arizona needs to continue to try to help their quarterback as well. Falcons had a weird draft. I like the first pick. The second pick's a little wonky, and to trade up and get rid of a pick for next year is just kind of odd. Obviously, very defensive heavy. They feel comfortable in their offense and the weapons that they already have on that offense, and the players they brought in for agency to make the moves. And I think that getting two safeties, and especially with Watts, it's awesome to get a guy like that. I think that this defense should be interesting. A lot of people leaving that defense, now that they're adding people in, should be fun. Baltimore took a little chance, took a little swing. I don't want to give them an A like people are giving. Like, first of all, there's a reason why Green fell because he did. But between the off the field stuff and everything, and I mean, like, if you're gonna get a kicker because of the off the field stuff with Justin Tucker, then I mean, whatever. I don't think that's the case. I think they got a kicker because Tucker did do awful, so now it's an extra insurance. Like, okay, now we're bringing in competition no matter what, and if situation goes really bad, Tucker's done. I like the Starks pick. I felt like I don't know if they're gonna make Starks transfer into a corner, because I feel like with Hamilton, like, yes, it's good to have two safeties that are awesome. As a Steelers fan, I know that, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it was the biggest need, especially when their corners, pretty much every corner of their team left. But I think every other pick I really enjoyed. They got a lot of depth in certain positions, and I thought it was a very, very smart move by the Baltimore to try to load up in certain positions. I like Buffalo. We knew that they needed to get defensive heavy. I thought they were going to do a little more offense and potentially even draft a running back, but I think that this shows that, hey, we trust you. And that I'm going to talk about during the Raiders pick, but like, y'all, there are so many still high value free agents out there, and like, do not like assume anything, because there's so many good free agents available that you all could potentially, like, no matter whose team it is, could get us at least one more big time guy. And I'm trying to pop that up. But I like their first three picks. Obviously, they focused heavily on that defensive front, and they clearly had a thing going here where they were like, we need to get defense. The tight end pick was a little weird to me, and I thought that they could have gotten a receiver earlier, but it is what it is. Carolina had one of those drafts where it's like, I like what you did, but I also think that some of your moves make a little to no sense. Like, I think that now they have a really good receiver room, especially bringing in Hunter Renfrow. If he can get back to where he was, like, that's an awesome pickup, and you got now four guys in that, just weapons alone that could help you out. You obviously go and get two talented edge rushers. I felt like the ETN pick was a little high. Clearly, they have an upside for ETN. They feel like he is a guy that be in a position that will help the team. So, of course, they went with him, and I think that the rest of their picks made sense depth-wise and just positional-wise. Chicago was interesting. I hated their first pick. I loved their second. I mean, I think everyone's expecting, oh, well, hey, he's built similar to Brock Bowers, where he's 6'6". He's built like a tight end, but he can move like a wide receiver. I feel like that's kind of like the new model now for tight ends. And I just don't think Loveland was the guy to go here. If Warren was the better tight end, why wouldn't you go Warren, right? So I'm a little intrigued on why they did that, but let's see if this eventually does well with them. And I thought they had a great tight end already, so just a little weird, especially when you could have either gotten somebody else at that position and possibly gotten maybe even moved back and got picks later. Like, I think Hampton, if he was on this team, would have still done good. I like the Luther Burton pick. You get some offensive depth, especially with you rebuilt that offensive line, but now you're getting some youth in there. Getting that young guys in to just kind of be whether they're starting or whether they're just going to be backups and potentially be starters. That's huge. And then getting a lot of defensive help, getting a running back late. I thought the Chicago Bears did a relatively good job. Cincinnati taking a ginormous leap on a first round pick, but I like the rest of their draft. I think that getting the offensive weapons that they did, that the offensive guards that they did was huge, because I think that those two guys could really benefit this team. I think the Carter pick was smart. I think that they got some Bengals every year, though. I think last year even they were like, I don't know if this is a smart pick, but I think the Bengals know what they're doing, and hopefully they do. I thought they were going to go a little more defensive heavy, and I mean they did. It's hard when you always have O-line needs and your defense is now, like, you have one of the most expensive offenses in the league, and now you don't have anybody on the defensive side. So you really needed to take some shot on rookies. Cleveland. I was going to give Cleveland an A++ until day 3. Because day 3 they made themselves look, honestly day 2 they made themselves look like idiots. So I like moving back. I don't understand not taking the generational talent. Obviously, I feel like they thought maybe it's better to just, hey, this guy could potentially get hurt all the time for playing two ways. Let's move him down. Let's get somebody we know will start every single snap on the defensive side of the ball. Let's go there, get a pick for next year to potentially draft up or even get more capital for our guys that we want. And then you get a good defensive player. Then you go and get a good linebacker. And then you get a good running back. I thought getting Jenkins was good. In my opinion, I would have gone Henderson. I think I would have been more scared to fight Henderson 2 times a year. But I think that this is still a great pick no matter what. Getting another tight end, I thought it was a smart move-ish. I thought, one of the best talented tight ends in college football last year. This is a good move to bring in, especially because David Njoku has ups and downs every year, but I think he's still a solid producer. But you never can go wrong with 2 tight ends, right? Now, this is where I think they really effed up. Getting Dillon Gabriel. What was the point of getting Dillon Gabriel? They have him 10th ranked. I had him if the best, he was going to go in the 6th round, 7th round. I had him going undrafted, though. I didn't think he was going to get drafted. So the fact that he goes from, in my opinion, a 7th to undrafted free agent to a 3rd round pick is crazy. Then the next day, Cleveland gets another running back. And listen, I don't hate getting a double running back stack combination because, listen, it's worked for teams like the Chiefs. It's worked for teams like Pittsburgh when they had the Najee and Warren, and now they have the Johnson and Warren. Like, they have these duos that work really well. And it's smart because you don't want to rely on just one guy. You want to keep pounding the rock with whoever you have. I just think that with a team that has a lot more needs, that don't really have an offensive weapon outside of Judy, I would have gotten another wide receiver earlier in the draft. Like, no offense, I wouldn't have taken a Dylan Gabriel when there was talented wide receivers left. I believe the Tennessee wide receiver was still available that the Raiders got. I thought that was a huge pick. I just feel like they did so good at the beginning of the draft, and then they just fell apart after the Dylan Gabriel pick. And then getting Shedeur Sanders. Listen, if Sanders works out, awesome. But if he doesn't work out, I just don't think that this is a smart situation to begin with. Because now one of your draft picks are going to be awful this year. You have 5 quarterbacks. One is not going to start in Watson. Kenny, Flacco. Those are going to be the guys who's potentially going to start. One of these other 2 are going to get cut, and it's not going to be Shedeur. So Dylan Gabriel, a pick that you spent on the 3rd round, is probably going to go. I think that that's crazy. I think that is just ridiculous. Obviously, there's a potential that they put him in the practice squad. They see what he does. But, I think Shedeur is 10 times talented than Gabriel, and I don't understand why he was picked before him. Especially because if you still were interested in Shedeur, why the hell did you pick Dylan Gabriel 24 hours beforehand? I don't get it. I really don't. That's why I think Cleveland went from like an A down. Dallas makes another weird decision in the 1st round pick, but then they continuously, every single year, they do a great job at just announcing and, immediately getting guys later. I think that drafting depth in the positions of need, especially because a lot of players on their team got hurt, was huge. I'm surprised. I was wondering why they didn't draft a quarterback, but I forgot they got Milton to be the backup. I like these 3 picks right here. I think you got a good I think you got a good running back. I think you got a really good corner, and I think you got a good edge rusher. I think that they did good here, but I don't know how good the guard's going to be. Denver. I thought Denver did pretty good. I like their first 3 picks. They obviously get some edge rusher help. They get a punter and a tight end. I think that it's great to see teams take advantage of positions of need. I think that getting, if he could even be close to what Surtain is, or just being able to have that good corner duo, is huge, because you don't have to worry about, hey, you have to go against the number 1. Detroit, I thought, had an interesting one. They had a lot of interesting pickups after the draft. I know Caden Prescore, or I feel like I'm saying his name wrong. He ends up signing as an unrestricted free agent or undrafted free agent. I like the guard pick. I thought the wide receiver pick was a little interesting, but come to find out, they weren't even originally going to take them. They were going to get the Raiders pick, but once the Raiders picked them, they had to move down. I like the Boise State pick. That was a cool story. I think this is a relatively good draft. I just felt like the offensive weapons, were they nervous about how guys would go taken down, and I felt like you could have gotten more weapons and a lot more options here. The Matthew Golden pick was good. I think Green Bay had a really good draft. You get a good tackle. I felt like getting 2 wide receivers really early was huge because they clearly do not believe in their wide receiver room. Getting that defensive depth as well for the rest of the draft was pretty much really, really huge for them. Houston, I felt like, had a middle of the pack draft. I liked the Higgins pick, moving down and getting that. I felt like for a team that changed a lot on their offensive line, I'm very shocked that they just drafted 1 guy. Clearly they have another trick up their sleeve, or they believe in the guys that they already have. I just feel like that this was a bad move. Then getting another Iowa State wide receiver, it's like, okay, there were still guards available, and I was very shocked about that move. Then you go and get a cornerback, you add to your running back depth, then you get a backup quarterback, safeties, you get positions of backup needs, and I think that was pretty huge. Then the Colts. Colts had a really good draft, I think. You got you got some defensive talent for sure. You get a potential quarterback of the future. I'm not going to go crazy, but Riley Leonard could either be the backup or he could actually show some things and be a starter. Now you obviously have Daniel Jones and Richardson, but this is Richardson's make or break year. If Richardson does not produce this year or doesn't stay healthy, I think the Colts move on from him. And I think that's why they got Daniel Jones, and that's also why I think they got Riley Leonard, just to see if maybe they have a potential quarterback there. Travis Hunter did very well. I thought the Travis pick was awesome. For trading up, I thought they had a lot of picks this year. They get a lot of extra backup positions. I love the running back that they selected. They helped that offensive line. I like the getting a corner right after you already got a corner in Travis Hunter, because now I feel like you can get a good corner duo and a good wide receiver duo, and that's something I have said from the very beginning that you need to. If you're drafting Travis Hunter, you have to already have a number one corner and a number one wide receiver. Like, that's why I was like saying that maybe one of these great teams need to go up and get him. Like, when you think of maybe like a team like the Ravens, if they were to trade up and get Travis Hunter, you already have corners that could potentially be your number one. He can come in and be number two, and he could be number two. Yes, he could potentially be number one, but at least you already have depth in those positions. I thought they did really good getting some backup here, especially like the Kaiser pick. I thought that they did pretty well in this aspect. Kansas City, I thought, did very well. I felt like the Simmons pick was so, like, we all knew it was happening. I felt like every pickup was smart, and all of these guys are going to be people that we hate every other Sunday because they're kicking ass. I love the Amari and Hampton being selected, but I think it's just weird. Like, you go and get Najee and you pay him. I mean, not a crazy much, but I mean, like, then you go and get Hampton. I know you, like I said, you want that 2-punch duo. You want to roll in. You want to continue to show everybody what they're doing, to continue to pound the ball. But I think when you clearly lost a lot of defensive power in this offseason, and maybe you should continue to upgrade that offensive line, I just feel like it was a weird pick. The wide receiver from Ole Miss, I love Harris, and I think that this is a great pickup, and this is going to be a great addition for that Chargers team. Then they go and get some defensive players, another wide receiver. They get a lot of defensive depth, and I think this was huge. The Rams, I felt like, had an off draft. I think next year they're definitely loading up, but this was a very weird one. I like the Stewart pick. I think the Ferguson pick will eventually be very good because, once again, it's a big body guy built like a receiver, and it's going to be interesting to see how he gets used. But I did think that this was a huge draft for them. Now, I think the draft winners, the Raiders. I thought the Raiders did huge. And I think that the Raiders are a team that you need to watch out for because they also still have the second most cap. And if I'm the Raiders, I'm not even joking. I'm probably going to spend most of my money on either the best O-lineman available, the best defensive players available, but I am going to take a look at potentially bringing in a guy like J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb. The videos after the draft of Nick Chubb is huge. But the reason why I say that is because you just got Ashton Jeanty. That is not going to be the only guy you want running the ball. I think if you can get Chubb to come in and be behind Ashton Jeanty, you have a powerful running back duo. And Chubb is not going to let go. And I think it's good to not have a rookie running back get plastered every single game. So the fact that you could bring in another, like, remember that running back room was not great with Madison and all those other guys. Like, I think if you could bring in Chubb or J.K. Dobbins to take some touches away from Ashton Jeanty, it will be very huge for Jeanty to get a break because I feel like the worry is he's going to get beat up a lot. I mean, the running backs always do. I like their second pick. I like their third pick. I like their fourth and fifth. They got that depth. Everyone was bitching. They don't have an offensive line. I've been seeing that girl that literally bitched about everyone's draft pick. But literally, you have the offensive line now. You're getting some guys that could potentially play later on. Then you go and get another really talented wide receiver. Your wide receiver 4 guys are great now. I think that you have a talented tight end duo. You get some depth in the defensive tackle position. You then get a wide receiver slash quarterback. This was a huge pick because the things that I've been hearing is that they want to use this pick similar to Taysom Hill, similar to Julian Edelman. This is going to be a guy that you have to look out for because of the talent that he put up in the, I know it's a different division in college, but it's still big because talent does come from there. Same thing with Cam Miller, a potential backup quarterback that I really think that is going to produce, because when you look at his stats and how many times he threw the ball, how many times he rushed for, those two guys coming out of that school and that conference and, that division is huge. And then I like the linebacker pick late, and they did some pretty cool free agent moves, right? So I think a team to really look out for with having the second most draft capital. And real quick, I'm going to name them now while we're here, and we can try to finish off. Samuel is still available. Mike Hilton is still available. Stephon Gilmore, Jordan Whitehead, Rashad Jenkins, Justin Simmons, Shaq Thompson, Isaiah Simmons. I believe Isaiah Simmons actually was just selected or picked up. Matthew Judon, Von Miller. These are just a few names that that are still available. And that is not including some of these other free agents like Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Deontay Johnson, who just signed, some tight ends, some backup quarterbacks. So there's still a lot of potential for all of these teams, but the team that could benefit the most is the Raiders. And I would definitely sign one of those running backs immediately, especially Nick Chubb, because I think Chubb is built to a format where he can come in every third down and get you some yards. I mean, yes, he's still coming off of that injury, but remember, injuries do not, you can't just get healed right away. He's had a year now to recover and get back to somewhat normal. I think he can come back and do it. Miami, I like their first pick. I like their second pick. I like the picks that they made. Of course, they had to come in and get a running back. I think that they got a quarterback in Ewers that if he could beat out Wilson, all Miami needs is a very good second quarterback because of how many times Tua goes down. So if Ewers could be that guy that could potentially come in, be that starter, or even that backup that makes the starter kind of worried for his job, Ewers could do that. And he kind of needs to. Minnesota had a it was okay. I felt like they didn't get the needs that they really needed. I felt like they did still get really good talent. I just don't think they got the needs that will make them competitive. I loved New England's draft. I thought that I liked the first pick, second, third. I think getting Jared Wilson was huge to continue to build that offensive line. I think that getting a kicker was obviously an interesting move, but I think the fact that they got some depth in positions of need, that are positions that are older or, might not be as crazy as others, getting positions that guys can be day one starters was huge, and I liked seeing it with New England. Now we're down to the last few. The New Orleans Saints, I thought, had a pretty good draft. You have a potential quarterback of the future / of the now, I guess. You get some great depth in different positions, especially we saw that with this year. A lot of positions going down. I thought they should have gone a little more wide receiver. There was a lot of good wide receivers on the board. I thought that they could have gotten one in certain spots, but clearly they felt comfortable with their wide receivers, and maybe they're one of those teams that might call like Amari Cooper, to try to get some depth in that offense. The Giants had an okay draft. I want to say a great one, but we have to see. The biggest what if is if Jackson Dart could produce. If Jackson Dart could be that quarterback that a lot of people are projecting, how I thought he could potentially be now that he's with New York, I don't know if that will happen, but if they could, this was a great draft for saying, hey, we are drafting for our jobs. And I think that the head coach and the GM are like this. Right now, they have to be together because they know if they do not at least scratch an 8-win season or even like a 7, they're gone. And I think Abdul Carter is going to help. I think Alexander's going to help. Scatabo, I love all of their picks up here. I think you get a good offensive line help. I still think you need O-line help, but If the Giants could somehow, some way scratch at least make somewhat of a playoff push, I don't think that they should be fired. And I will be shocked if they were fired if they have a winning season or just short of a winning season, because I would have given them one more year after almost potentially making another winning season. I thought the Jets did pretty well as well. Um, I felt like this is the first draft out of the era was huge, and I think that I like their first two picks. The Mason Taylor was a little weird, but I like the Thomas pick. Um, I feel like they could have gone elsewhere, but this is a team that does kind of need a lot. Eagles did really good. They took chances on guys. They're getting guys like Kyle McCord to potentially be backup. This was just a good draft. They continue to draft well. The Seahawks had, I think, one of the sneakiest second best drafts of the entire thing. They got a lot of guys in position of need, and they got a lot of guys that are going to be based off potential. I love their last pick, Ricky White out of UNLV. I've seen him. I think he could be a top wide receiver in the NFL if given the right opportunity, the right chance, and the right work. I love that Jackson Woodard also got picked up in undrafted free agency. But I love their picks. They got some guys and they got some dogs in big positions on that guard spot, on that safety spot, tight end spot. That quarterback is huge, especially with Milroe. He's a developmental guy. If he could sit for a year and potentially, you do design him for some packages similar to how Pittsburgh did Fields, or even, the how people do. I'm trying to think of what team did it. Like when Lamar was thrown in every now and then. I think this was a huge draft for Seattle. San Francisco, same thing. They got some good picks. I thought that they did very well. Continuing to go on that defensive side, I was very shocked that they didn't say, like, hey, maybe let's get some offensive linemen here to try to see if we can boost it up, especially because, their guys aren't getting younger. And I was very shocked to see that they just kept going defense. Especially Upton Strout was a shocker. A guy who a lot of people thought was going to be 7th round went in the 3rd. A lot of strange picks in this draft for sure. Tampa Bay, and I didn't say it with the Falcons. The Falcons had a lot of good unrestricted free agents, undrafted free agents. So did Tampa. Tampa had a good job getting some of the talented guys. Obviously, Sanders got there, but they got that big D tackle that's almost 500 pounds. They made some moves. And Emeka Ibuka's huge move. I understand a lot of people don't like it, but at the end of the day, we don't know if Mike will, what if Mike Evans is not planning on playing that long? What if the injury really is terrible? I think that this was a smart move to get some more wide receiver help for your quarterback that you really trust in Baker Mayfield. You get some corner depth, edge depth. I think that they could have still got a little more things here, but Tampa did a very good job. Tennessee did huge. You not only got a guy, where did he go? You got the guy who cooked Travis Hunter in college. Now that he's in the same division, huge. You get defensive help. You get that wide receivers and the running backs. You get the depth positions that you need. And I thought that this was huge. Now, I do not like that they truly trust in that. They did do a lot to get some offensive linemen in this year's free agency pool, so not going heavily into the draft is interesting. I'm interested to see how that will work. Obviously, all eyes will be on Travis Hunter from starting week 1, and Cam Ward, and I can't wait to see what happens. Washington had an interesting draft. I thought the offensive tackle move wasn't crazy. I like the corner move. I think that Trey is a great corner, and I think that I don't know why, he just feels like a Washington Commander. And then the rest were depth moves. At the end of the day, every team has made a lot of picks that have made them better. Now, if I had to say the top team, I would say the Raiders. This Raiders team, I don't want to just try to fleece them up and just try to, but it is very true. The Raiders are going to be a team that a lot of people are going to be shocked by. Their quarterbacks last year are not as good as the one that they have now. Now that the depth they have, if O'Connell is still on that roster, and now that they have 2 guys that are drafted, Obviously Miller will be that third stringish kind of guy, depending on if how good he really is. Someone who's mobile, and they have the second most cap space. Do not, do not underestimate the Raiders when it comes down to, hey, there are remaining free agents. There is a huge possibility that the Raiders can go in, make a lot of moves. And I'm going to show you guys a list of guys right now. This is from 7 days ago, so this is different. But a lot of available guys coming into this season. And first of all, this is a huge one. Who needs a young corner that could potentially do something? I think the Raiders would be interested. Obviously, Mike Hilton. Obviously, we know if Aaron Rodgers plans on playing. We know he's going to the Steelers. J.K. Dobbins, Kyle Allen, a veteran guard, Zadarius Smith, Judon, another young offensive tackle. If somebody wants to take a chance on him, obviously he was just selected. Justin Simmons. You have a lot of guys. Wow, I'm shocked Will Hernandez is still available. Maybe because of that injury. Yeah, the knee injury last year. Von Miller. If I'm the Raiders, I'm going to try to figure out how to get 3 more guys. And I'm not even joking. The 3 guys I would try to get is Will Hernandez, Justin Simmons, one of these offensive weapons. So you either go him or Williams, him or Hernandez. You have to go with one or the other. Justin Simmons for sure. I think that they're fine on edge rusher, even though they might, if they can get a short deal or a small deal with one of these guys. You have to either look at one of these corners, and you have to go with Nick Chubb. You can get a small deal with Nick Chubb. I think for Chubb, you can get a 1-year deal that is worth a decent amount that you won't have to spend so much. Then you can get one of these other big guys. I think that you can sign Will Hernandez maybe to a 2-year deal. Also maybe kind of short because of he's coming off of a knee injury. Maybe some short-term deal. But, I mean, if you could put some faith in him, I really think that the Raiders, if you can get one more additional offensive lineman piece, I think that this offensive line could be really huge. Hernandez really could be that. We've seen what he could do in the other organizations. I thought he really did well with the Cardinals compared to what he did back when he first started his career with the Giants. And then running back wise, for the Raiders, I do think that don't get the sloppy seconds for the Chargers. If you are looking at what you want to do, if you want to pound the rock and pound the football, Ginty is smaller, but he is gonna be a threat. I think you have to go with a guy like Chubb, because if Chubb is going to be that big-bodied back who we know can make some moves and make people, basically have to take him down by his legs to try to push him back, 5 other guys have to come in and help, that is a huge addition. J.K. Dobbins obviously had a phenomenal year last year, so I don't know. If you can get one of those guys to pair up with Ginty, the Raiders will probably be a very dangerous offense, especially with Chip Kelly and how they have. Obviously, those were just also weapons for everybody. So let me know what you guys think. Like this video, like it, comment down below. I'm going to be out. Dominate the world, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night.